I'm not gonna be able to hear you just right here. What are you using to stream? OBS? Yes, it's super loud. I don't mind it, but I can't hear you. Do you get your music from? 'Cause I don't recognize any of it. Okay. Hey, I make music, so I can do pretty much anything you want. I don't know what kind of music you like, but I don't know. I can do whatever. Seriously.
Alright, thanks, brother.
Yeah, of course.
Hey everybody, yeah, we're having a conversation here, getting the kinks out of the software. Alright, just want to try one more thing here, see if this works. Select. Okay, let me know if you hear this, or do you see the screen as well?
I have the live stream pulled up, but yes, I hear the music.
Alright, so you hear the music and you see OBS, the OBS screen?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. Now, if I go to this, do you see another screen? Do you see the browser or no? Just OBS.
I can't hear you.
Okay, do you see... Sorry, man, the music's coming. Do you see the browser or OBS right now?
I can't hear you at all, Mark.
Okay, don't worry about it, man. Alright, okay. Alright, we're gonna go into it. Yep. Cut this short. Hello everybody, and welcome back to Forever Conscious Research Channel. I hope you find yourselves doing well out there tonight. Happy Saturday. So got a pre-birth memory and experiences to go over. It is loaded with life script data, the karmic guilt and shame, the memory wipe, deep fear, trauma, and then explaining away the whole existence here and how it pertains to us and individually and as a collective. So last minute I reached out to Harold, who we've had on the show before. He's had a shared death. I mean, I'm sorry, not shared death. I mean, pre-birth memories as well. And if you're ever looking for that interview with Harold, I highly recommend checking it out. It was a lot of fun and very detailed. And you can find that in the video section of this channel. And let's see, what else was I going to say? I think that was about, oh yeah, and Harold is in the Discord too. So if you ever wanted to swing by the Discord and say hi, feel free. And all right, so Harold, you see it, just want to say really quickly, you see the screen, correct? And hear the sound, okay?
Yes, I do.
All right, great.
Hi, chat.
Great. Okay, so welcome, Harold. It's great to have you with us, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, we're just going to start this video, do a commentary, and I figured Harold could jump in with me once in a while and we'll kind of discuss things, or maybe if something stands out to him or he can relate it to his experience. I think it would be kind of a unique way to go at this show. So let's jump right into it. All right, so this is from Melissa's channel, and I want to give a special thank you for her work. Her channel is called Love Covered Life Podcast. So that's the source video from this. It's a 2-part interview. She also has done other interviews with near-death experiencers and pre-birth memories. We don't align in our beliefs with what's going on, but doesn't matter. She does good work, and I recommend checking out some of her interviews. All right, so let's roll. This is Dominic Casenza. And again, he's a pre-birth memory and experiences.
Hello, Dom. Thank you so much for joining me. I am so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for reaching out and sharing your story with me. I'm always excited, as I was just telling you, to meet a fellow pre-birther, somebody else with a pre-birth memory, and you have some really fascinating details to yours, which I had never heard before. Of course, I haven't heard that many pre-birth memory stories. So I'm just really excited to have you here. Thank you for agreeing to do this, and welcome.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me as well. I'm super excited to be doing this.
Yeah, me too. So if you don't mind, could you just start out by sharing whatever you would like to share about your pre-birth memory?
So where it starts for me is actually what I think and what I would consider to be a past life. And I don't really remember all the details, but I do remember that I died and I was dying. And from what I can gather, I think I was stabbed. And I have some speculation. I think I may have been a crusader or something like that. I've sat with a couple people that can kind of look into those things, and that's what they've told me. But at any rate, I was definitely fighting in some kind of conflict, and as I was bleeding out, and dying, I could feel my consciousness start to leave my body, right? And I could also see like this void behind me open up. And it's this weird thing because when I started to leave my body, and when I started to leave my body, it was like I could see multiple things at once, but I was still, like one entity, for lack of a better word. It's really hard to explain, but I could feel this, void open up behind me like a portal, right? And so I started to get sucked into this black void. And as this is happening, I'm panicking. I'm realizing that I'm dying, and I can feel, how terrified I was. And
Okay, so we're seeing his exit process. Obviously, he's terrified, and this is going to carry over, and you'll see.
I can distinctly remember, just asking God to forgive me and to, basically, wipe anything away that I had done, and, pardon me. And I was that terrified.
So see, he's already given himself up in this past incarnation. He's begging God, asking for forgiveness. So you're already cooked at this point. If we do stuff like that, then we're giving our self away. We're giving our sovereignty away to something exterior to ourselves that we believe is God or Jesus or whoever. And that's how we keep getting in this mess of the reincarnation soul trap, by giving ourselves away.
And I distinctly remember, feeling like I was suffocating as well. And the more that I separated from my body, the more I started to lose, all of the physical sensations. But that was something that remained. It was like this sensation of suffocating, and not really understanding, well, how am I alive without breathing? How am I still aware? And it's like, it's a trippy thing to be aware that you're dying and also still be aware that you're conscious and alive, right? And so eventually I get pulled through this portal, and as it's closing, I'm in this huge black void. I can't really tell how big it was. I imagine it's probably infinite. And this reality, real life, quote unquote, is slowly starting to fade, and it goes into a digital image almost. It goes from 32-bit to 16-bit to 8-bit, the further and further away it gets, right? Until
let's see, where did it go? Where did my meeting go? All right, there. Okay, Harold. I wanted to ask you, what do you feel about that? The 8-bit to 16-bit to 8-bit. Do you have any recollection of something like that at all?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
Thought I'd ask. Okay.
There's nothing left, and I'm just left in this black void. And at this point, I really started to panic, right? And so I still had the sensation of suffocating. I was still, just asking God to forgive me. I felt this overwhelming sense of shame and guilt for whatever had gone on in that previous life. And after a certain point, I'm not really sure when, but the panic started to wear off, and I realized that it wasn't necessarily breathing, but there was still a movement of something, energy. I can't really define what it is, but the panic started to wear off, and I was able to orient myself in this space relative to my last position. But I mean, there's nothing there, right? So it's timeless, it's endless. I had zero concept of time, At some point, I started to forget that I even had been alive at one point. And so it kind of just felt like I was there and had been there for eternity after a certain point. And at one point, there was also these voices, and I think it was after kind of, having forgotten everything in my previous life, but these voices came in and I could feel.
Okay, after he'd already forgotten everything from his previous life. That's a big one. So we're seeing a memory wipe right there. So perhaps there is something missing. It's almost guaranteed there is something missing along this whole stretch of experiencer accounts we get from Dominic. And in my opinion, it's around the whole life review that the memory wipe occurs, and then it kind of just moves on from there and takes hold, and we just get placed under this veil, forget who we are, forget the whole experience, forget the hell we just went through in that previous incarnation, and then we line ourselves up to do it all over again.
Kind of intuitively that they were there to mess with me. They weren't friendly, and they heckled me and kind of laughed at me like like this one still thinks like he has to breathe, and really made me feel like I was in hell, right? And that's where I thought I was going to, right? I thought, okay, I've died. I'm in hell. Like, I'm here for eternity. I'm stuck, I thought I was going to be there forever.
So more pre-baked belief systems that are carrying over to his experience after that previous life.
And so I don't know when, but I remember kind of reaching a peak of panic, and at that point it was like, okay, like this is it, like I'm surrendering, like this is what it is, like I accept my fate, right?
So again, here we go with that word surrender again. He already gave himself away, but it's further surrender. And surrender is kind of a whole nother topic, and we'll talk about it maybe towards the end of the show later on.
And as soon as I did that, the heckling stopped, and an overwhelming sense of peace and just like relaxation came over me. And this is where I kind of, I don't remember the pieces in between this point and the next part, but
so that we have memory wipe. So exactly what we were talking about earlier. There's a gap. He admitted earlier that he had already lost his memories in relation to his most recent life, and here we are. There's another gap that we're going towards as well.
From what other people have talked about, there's a portal of light, and they go into the light, right? I don't remember any of that. But I do remember feeling an overwhelming sense of peace. And then after that point is when I found myself in like this glass house, right?
A cube, maybe? Just saying. Who knows?
And I remember going into this glass house, and there's this white grand piano. The grass is, or the grass is floor. The floor is grass, right? And to my right, there is a garden, but I can't see the garden because it's covered by mist. But intuitively, I knew there was a garden there, and I felt like I had been to this place many, many times, right? And so I was kind of, I didn't have a body. I was just this orb of light and energy. And so I'm just kind of like zipping around this place, and I'm like so excited to be alive. And I had what I would say is like very childlike energy, like I was a child again.
Anything you wanted to add there, Harold?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just
Go ahead.
at this point, it's word for word what I experienced. Just being an orb of light and being really curious and excited and happy and just feeling great.
And any entities? Well, I mean, it's kind of different. I mean, we know you dealt with entities.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's no, okay.
Yep.
Right. Very innocent, very, I felt brand new. Everything that had happened to me was completely erased. I didn't remember any of it, even up to that point. Right.
Completely erased. Completely erased. See, this happens in the astral before we freaking even get here. And then I think it happens multiple times. We've talked about that before. I think there's multiple layers to this memory wipe. I think they get you when you leave here to make it easier to kind of get you to agree and to continue with the whole deception. And then you go through this whole process again, hanging out in the astral, doing whatever you're doing, picking out life script and body and location you're going to live, and maybe going to the soul classes and all this stuff, taking a little break with the soul group and going on vacation in the astral, doing whatever you're doing, relaxing. So they need to erase all of that too. So it would make sense that you have at least one memory wipe when you die to make you more compliant, and then they erase the other gap of your memory that you had in the astral leading up to the next incarnation. That way, there's nothing coming down, or barely anything, unless you have something like a pre-birth memory or a life between lives account. But even then, it's very limited information, and it's not going to be by any means your full experience, probably barely any. Just like a drop in the bucket.
And I remembered, that past life section of dying after, having been born in this life. So I didn't even remember it in this space, right? And I remember kind of just like exploring this space. And then what I would call my guide showed up, and they were almost like, a bigger orb of light and energy.
So more intimidating.
And so
He laughed. Actually, that's a question I got for you, Harold. Do you remember the size? Was there a size difference with the beings you dealt with? Like, I forgot, they weren't like towering over you, right?
No, they look like just normal average adults.
Okay.
And again, I'm in like an orb state. So they were I wasn't like way smaller than them. It was just like, I was like a child, I guess. And they were just adult size.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying.
They came into this space, and I'm laughing because I was so ungrounded, with excitement that they got frustrated, right? And so they kind of pulled me in and gridlocked me into place, so I couldn't like move around and stuff. They're like, okay, like we got to take care of this. You can't be zipping around like that.
Yeah, do as you're told, step in line, follow instructions. You can't be doing anything. How dare you be free? How dare you enjoy yourself? This is the type of crap we're dealing with, guys. We're being pushed around by these things, but by the time we're involved in this mess, we're too deep. We're way too deep in it. And they have some capability, including that freaking memory wipe, that is able to control us. That's why the whole point is to have that sovereign direction, not just when you die, but now. It's important to keep using that in our day-to-day life, because this is what we got to do. We got to assert ourselves and not bow down or even fall influence to this in any way, shape, or form. Once you get on that conveyor belt, it's good luck.
And one of the interesting things about this guide is they would go back and forth between male and female energy, right? So they didn't have a fixed gender, if that's what you want to call it, right?
How crazy is that, Harold? We were just talking about that.
Yes, we were. Uh-huh.
Just to fill people in, we were talking about what is it? Elden Ring? What is it? How's it?
Yep. Elden Ring.
Elden Ring game. Yeah. Harold brought that up, and now we have that synchronicity.
Yep.
And basically they walked me through. They told me like, okay, like we're here to pick your next parents. We're here to pick things out for your next life. Like this is your next, mission, so to speak. And I remember them distinctly calling it a mission. They were like, this isn't a typical life that you've signed up for. Like you volunteered to do this. You have to be very intentional with what you're doing here and what you're intending to accomplish. And
yeah, know your
so
role.
It's interesting because the way that this all plays out is, and I'm explaining it because I think we all go through this and most of us just don't remember it. And I'm not sure like why either of us remember, any of us remember, but there is like a screen and the edges are like the finest like gold light, and it just floats there, right? And it's not any solid material that I know of, at least, or it's at least like an energetically created space, right? So everything is made of light. The glass, the grass, the garden, like everything is made of light from what I can tell. And so they use this screen and they flash these screens up in front of me, or he flashed the screens up in front of me. And, he gave me options of parents. He put options of parents in front of me, and he told me, okay, like, these parents are going to allow you to do X, Y, and Z. These parents are going to allow you to do X, Y, and Z.
So, Harold, what do you think of that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly what I experienced too, but it wasn't necessarily like exactly like that as far as like putting a screen up in front of me. But yeah, and I didn't see what my parents really looked like. I just knew it inside, if that makes sense. Yeah, all the different options, exactly like he said, XYZ. If I did this, XYZ, same exact thing.
Crazy.
And so it was my choice to choose my parents on an intuitive level. Of the best way I can explain it is like there was a part of myself in that space that knew beyond a conscious level what was best for me, and it's like the answer would come from a part of myself that was much deeper than I understood even there.
Hey, I just said that.
Yeah, yes. Oh man. And then I mean, it to me, like, I hear that and it just feels like a implanted choice almost. Like
I can agree with that.
It's the perceived choice, but it's probably coming from an exterior entity who's been working with you.
I could definitely agree with that.
And there were a lot of things that he showed me and that I experienced there that happened that way, where it was like this knowledge that I didn't even know I had was just there all of a sudden.
There you go. Knowledge I didn't even know I had. Just all of a sudden it's there.
And I think it's also important to note that the way that him and I communicated was instantaneous. As soon as I had a question, there was already an answer arriving in my being and in my knowing. And I don't really know how else to explain that other than you just know, right? And so I remember picking my parents. I remember choosing particular life events to experience. And, I had so many questions, and I asked him, what is it like to be in a human body? Right. And so he goes, well, let me show you. And it was like something similar to what Chris describes, of like being able to go into this almost like model of what our reality is, right? And being able to like test drive it, so to speak, right? And so I got to experience what it's like to be in a female body, what it's like to be in a male body. And as weird as it sounds, like I got to witness like parts of life through my brother's eyes and through one of my friend's eyes. And it's weird because it's like, now I'm incarnate and I can tell these people like, oh, I remember on this day, like we did this. And I remember like looking through your eyes and what I was looking at. Right.
What do you think of that, Harold?
I was about to say I've never heard anything like that before.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's an interesting one for sure.
It's like, yeah, how are they able to show him other people's perception? Like that's just
I
don't know.
maybe what they're doing is because they have access to all of our lives, like that there's
That's what I was
it's recorded. They can they can either A, implant it, or B, kind of maybe still kind of implant it, but in real time as it's happening, possibly.
And that's what I was thinking. That's what makes me think of like the whole script concept. It seems like, yeah.
It's crazy.
And so it's really weird to think about sometimes. Yeah, so he would allow me to kind of test drive things and allow me to experience things. If I had questions, like I asked him once, like, what is it like to be a solid object? Like, what is it like to be the floor? Right. And so he allowed me to like embed myself into the floor. And it was incredibly uncomfortable. And it was one of those.
I'm sorry, I had to mute myself.
That's right.
That's so weird.
I know. I'm gonna rewind it one sec.
Embed myself into the floor, and it was incredibly uncomfortable. And it was one of those experiences where I can say now, like, okay, everything definitely has consciousness, right? Even if it's not the same level or same kind of consciousness that we experience, everything has consciousness, whether it's a solid object or a living being, right? And so, yeah, I heard myself playing guitar. It was like the music would like fill the room. There's no.
Mark, can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
System.
Yeah, feel free to drop in anytime.
So if they can put you in a floor, does that mean that they can make you incarnate as an animal?
I think. I think we can easily. I think we kind of go through that process where we do incarnate as animals.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I really think it's like this process. And if you think about it, if you're running this place, it's a parasitic place. You would kind of want to ease beings into it. Like if it's their first time ever experiencing something like this, you might have them be something like a blade of grass or a leaf or a tree or whatever, and then kind of work your way up. Maybe you'll be a worm or a fish or a frog, and then maybe like a deer or an ape, you know, monkey, whatever, and or, you know, giraffe, dog, cat, and the bird, and then you kind of eventually reach that human point. Maybe that's how it goes. And I could see them even, you know, if we start to get a little too smart for their liking, a little too perceptive about what's going on, then maybe they can downgrade us.
Come back as a cockroach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what's going on? We have no clue. You know?
Yeah.
It would like fill the room. There's no speaker system. It was just like pulling from what I would call like the quantum vacuum of information and integrating it into the space, right? So I could hear conversations, I could hear music that I would eventually play. I play guitar, so yeah. And after a certain point, you know, we're going through all of this stuff, and we're in the middle of this conversation, and he pauses and he goes, "Okay, you have to go now." And I looked at him and I was like, "Wait, what? Like, we're not even done choosing stuff." He goes, No, you don't understand. Like, your parents are having you early, right?
So I'm curious what you think of this part coming up, Harold.
Like, we're not even done choosing stuff. He goes, No, you don't understand. Like, your parents are having you early, right? And he told me, you know, you were supposed to be born on X, Y, and Z date. They're having you early. It's going to be okay. But you do have to leave now.
So it's like the pressure, you know, like the deception to get you. Come on, hurry. We got to go.
I felt that too. Definitely. It felt rushed. I felt rushed the entire time. I don't know if you remember me like specifically saying that. Like they kept bugging me when I was trying to just float around and
collect yourself and
right. But yeah, it just felt really urgent and just come into the water, and then that's when I felt the love bomb.
And I saw the portal open up again, right? So there's this huge black void that I'm going into once again. And it was almost like I didn't have a choice. It immediately started to pull me into it. And I'm just like, no, wait, you know? And he's telling me things even on the way out the door. He's like, you know, you're going to study physics when you're in high school. You'll probably read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which I haven't actually done yet. But he told me basically that everything's going to be okay. You know, I'm going to be successful in what I came here to do, and to not worry that he'll be popping in from time to time is what he said. And the last thing that I remember asking him is who are you? And I could feel him like turn his attention to me. And he goes, who do you think I am? And I couldn't put a name to it, but I remember saying, like being surprised, almost like, oh, you're a really old man is what came to me like intuitively. And that was the last thing that I said to him in that space. And then obviously I got sucked back to the void. And I remember the other side opening up and like floating into my mom's room and then into her womb, obviously. Yeah. And I've had, a lot of experiences that I think people would, you know, consider or put in the realm of like the supernatural.
Well, what do you think about like the floating into the womb? I mean, I know that really your experience was a little more
It was definitely more rough.
Intense.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say like, oh, you're lucky you just floated.
Yeah.
I got sucked down a tube like at the speed of light.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
it was
it's a
really
big
rough.
difference. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
No water too. He didn't get any water.
Yeah,
Just
I know.
went to a portal.
Yeah, there's been a few things that stand out that are different than other
Mhm.
cases.
Mm-hmm.
That I think people would, consider or put in the realm of like the supernatural or spiritual or what have you, over the course of my life. And it all kind of corroborates what I've experienced. And I can say that there's a lot more to it than just a spiritual experience. There is some science behind it that we don't understand yet, and it also doesn't in any way diminish what I think parts of religion have been teaching us about either. And I can talk more about that stuff too if you want. But I don't know.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience, Dom. And honestly, I could talk to you for hours just about this, like just about your pre-birth memory, because I have so many questions I want to ask you. But yeah, if you want to share, continue with the train of thought that you were on.
I want to say one of the first things that, in hindsight sticks out to me that I was experiencing something that like other people don't experience is I remember I would walk through life, and this is around like 3 or 4 years old, but I would intentionally pay attention to like segments of what I was experiencing and then intentionally like rewind them in my mind. And it was like I could literally rewind time and I would replay certain parts of my life. Right? And I know that sounds totally out there, but that's one of the earliest things that I remember doing. And I also remember being aware that there were other beings with us and no one else was aware. And I couldn't understand why I could feel and hear them. And it was also something that was just so normal to me that I never said anything about it.
What are you thinking, Harold?
I was just thinking maybe if you go through the water, like the memory wipe is a lot more strong because this guy seems like he remembers a whole bunch of stuff, like when he was a kid. So
and there's you'll hear like how it's it was still. The interesting thing is there's like a gap in time for when he realizes it. So, which is different. It's different. But I've run into cases like that, but it's not all that often. A lot of times it's more people like yourself, Harold, who have a certain set of firm memories and they know from the get-go that they have those memories, and then some things will come along and maybe trigger additional memories as well, but that's really about it.
It's usually only really hearing other stories that bring up, new memories. I definitely do my absolute best to not let people implant ideas in my head. Because I definitely, I want to be authentic. I don't want to just be like, oh yeah, I remember that too. And, you
don't want to be adding stuff that's not there. Yeah,
exactly. Because I'm trying to figure this out.
Yeah, exactly.
Best way to do it.
And so I would spend hours and hours outside. My mom is really good about having us outside. But we lived in Italy at the time, and we had these pear trees in our yard. And I remember very intentionally, like even as a little kid, going up to these trees and talking to them and asking, "What's your name? Like, who are you?" You know, and they would respond. And it wasn't, you know, like a physical voice all the time. There were occasions where it was, but most of the time it was just a very intuitive. Like I would feel sensations in my body. We would, again, like the best way I can explain it is like it's just a knowing, and it's instantaneous too. And so what these tree spirits would do is they actually taught me yoga, and what I recognize now as yoga at the time, but as a kid, it's just like, oh, we're just doing like, you know, all these moves and stuff, you know? And so they would walk me through like these yoga moves, and qigong, which is more about moving energy. And I would like practice this stuff almost every day. You know, I would go out there and commune with the trees. But it got to the point where I was able to tap into the elements, and I was moving wind, and I was moving energy, right? And it's, you know, interesting because it all sounds like really whimsical, but I mean, there were also times where I was like, okay, I'm going to like play with this tree, and this tree would like whip me, you know, energetically, and be like, hey, like, you know, I don't want to play right now. Like, I don't want that, you know, and it would hurt, you know? So it's not just like, you know, happy go lucky, you know, like, there's a lot more to it that I don't even understand. Yeah, so stuff like that would happen. I remember talking to my guide, and that would happen pretty frequently. There were a lot of nights where, and I think this is kind of getting into the realm of where I'm realizing now that, you know, like my trauma kind of starts, and I don't really want to go into too much detail about that, but certain aspects of that, I think, really forced me to kind of delve into this stuff harder than most people would. And I do think it's important to note that, like, I think everybody has the capacity to tap into and be involved with life in these ways and communicate with spirit and true spirits.
Okay, so you know he's implying, obviously, some traumatic times he's gone through in his life, like many of us go through, and you know, you hear this, you hear how he basically didn't want to come, was kind of cornered into it. You know, whatever the trauma is, I'm sure it's not good at all. It's trauma, obviously. But then just the whole unraveling of this, and how on the other end of this, you're going to see just more normalization, more Stockholm syndrome about what this place really is, and cloaking it under this just this brainwashed ideology that, you know, Earth is a school, it's a learning experience, or I was sent here on a mission. That feeds the ego, that really makes someone feel special and good, and that they're here for a purpose and this and that. Meanwhile, nobody knows their damn purpose. Nobody knows their damn mission. Most of these NDEers don't even know. They're told they're on a mission, just like with the pre-birth memories, like we saw with him. You know, you have a mission, you have a purpose. Also had Mary, who I interviewed, the shared death, lifelong experiencer, had a bunch of shared death experiences, had some pre-birth memories, and she was told the same thing. She was sitting by a tree, and with a couple other beings or something in the astral, and she was tapped to basically come to Earth because she had a mission to fulfill. Earth needed her down there. So again, you have to ask, what are they needed for? What are they needed for? Just to kind of play out their life script, to suffer, to go through day-to-day life, and it's nonsensical. It is what it is, though, right? I mean, it makes people feel good. If you're not here to learn and grow spiritually and evolve, then you're here on a mission and you have some purpose that you're not even aware of. Either way, the explanation's horrible. It's stupid. It makes no sense. And it doesn't line up with the reality presented.
This way, right? But I think we come into a world that is, I would say, hell-bent on conditioning that out of us.
By design. The system works in unison with who sent us down here. It is ourselves. We did agree to it, but we agreed to come in here initially and got stuck in that cycle. That's the difference.
So it's almost it's almost like the trauma is what drove me to kind of cling to this stuff and pay attention to this stuff harder. And I think that's why I had as many experiences as I did.
And I think that is a big part of, I know a large percentage of people in the chat and the Discord, people, at least large portion of people I speak to, trauma plays a big role in this, and seeking and looking outside at the reality, looking inside at you and how you fit into this whole reality and what it's all about. And I think, yes, that is a catalyst, no doubt. And no matter how small or big that trauma is, when something happens to you or that's traumatic, you're going to question things deeper. You're going to maybe have more experiences like Dominic did. What are your thoughts on how trauma relates to everything here, Harold?
I just I think that it definitely makes us look into it more for sure, because we're just trying to figure out, why is this happening to me? None of this makes sense. Why is the world so terrible? Just looking for answers, like what's going on? What is this place? Yep. So definitely trauma triggers that, because you're just trying to cope with being screwed with all the time,
Exactly.
It's just what I think.
No, I totally agree, man. And in one of the big parts with looking into this whole thing is realizing that, it's always been like this. Like even no matter how twisted and distorted the history records are, there's a common theme of control and just control and suffering over and over.
That's another thing that got me. That's another thing that got me with this, Mark, is it's like, well, if we've been doing this since the dawn of time and it's getting worse, like it's not getting better, then this whole program is not working.
No,
at all.
It's failed.
So yeah,
it's crazy, man. Totally.
Yeah. When I started watching your channel, I started realizing, like, this is undeniable. So I
wish it was different. I really
Me too.
do. I really don't want to talk about this stuff and deliver this news. But it is what it is. It's the information speaks for itself. It's all about the whole collective of everything. And there's so many things, so many different topics, subtopics, and they all link together and just create this big filled in puzzle with, you know, maybe a few pieces missing.
Yep.
So
growing up. So there were a lot of nights where, you know, I would go to bed, and being as tapped into this stuff and I was like wide open as I was, you know, I could feel the earth. I could feel, you know, the consciousness of the air and of the trees and all that stuff. So that's what I would kind of pray to as a kid, right? And that's where I got my sense of security. So I would have, you know, these entities come in, right? And not all of them are good, not all of them are bad. And I also kind of have my thoughts around what that really means. I don't know if there's actually good or bad, but that's a totally other deeper topic there.
oh, there are.
But I would have, you know, like Archangel Michael come in, or my guide come in and talk to me at night and kind of walk me through like why I was experiencing these things, like what, you know, basically what's happening to me, because it was getting to the point where this reality is so malleable, it becomes dreamlike. And that's the realm that I was starting to step into, right? And so I would be hopping timelines. I would, you know, communicate with entities from other realms. I would literally, in my mind.
Mark, did he say that this reality is like dreamlike?
Yeah.
Is that what he said?
And that he is, I mean, the whole hopping timelines thing, I don't even know what to make of that anymore. I refuse to even look into it anymore because there's just so much bullshit out there that it just, and the whole Archangel Michael thing is, I mean, it's been around for a while, but it's a huge thing in the New Age communities. You know, you know, make of it what you will. I don't know.
Exit to other realms to the point where, like, the best way that I can explain it is like it starts off dreamlike, and after a certain point, it becomes almost more real than this reality. And the other characters or entities in that reality become aware of you, and then it starts getting really trippy. Right? So yeah, I would experience stuff like that. There was one time I used to be, I'll say religious. I don't really subscribe to any particular religion now, but my parents raised me Christian Baptist. And I remember the first time that, you know, I was like really praying to God, you know, accepting God as my savior and Jesus as my savior. The person that was helping me pray, as we're praying, he stops in the middle of praying and goes, "Hey, I want to show you something." And he waves his hand in front of his face, and his whole face swirls, right? And I go into what I call like, I mean, I just freeze, like I'm in gridlock, but I can see out of the corner of my eye, this thing that looks like Gollum from Lord of the Rings appears, right? And he starts telling me all these things. And in my mind, you know, I'm like 10 years old at this point. I'm just like, what is happening? You know? And
this is so far out.
I know, isn't it? It's
This is outrageous.
It's crazy. And you know what really kind of disconnects me from all of the other pre-birth memories, you know, set aside everything we've just heard, is the gap. The gap that he didn't have these memories until later on. And then all of a sudden he's filling in all this stuff, and it's not matching up with other pre-birth experiencers either.
I agree.
So there's, this is, one of those cases where you look at it and you say, wow, okay, who knows? But at the same time, it's, one that you got to use heavy discernment on. And, it's just one case of many, and you move on. It's just got to apply scrutiny to it and just say, well, maybe, the other problem really is, and I am not saying this is what Dominic's doing, but I've seen it with other people where they do get some sort of memories, or they do have this specific type of recall, or some big experience happens, and then so that's the base experience, and then that experience starts to grow and grow and grow and get more fanciful, on and on, until it's like, okay, when I'm looking at someone's experience, I'm specifically going as far back as I can. I want to see the very first report, very first video, whatever, and see exactly what they said in that. And then, I'll look at a few more and see, okay, are there any inconsistencies? Are they adding on to something and not disclosing how that came about? Or is there a massive difference from their original testimony to, let's say, their, testimony 10 years after, 5 years after, or even months after their initial one? Who knows? It kind of is what it is, and it's just tough to say.
That's why I resonate with you guys so much, you and Wayne, and all the research you guys do, because you guys are doing proper investigating. That's how you should do it. And yeah, that's why, I trust you guys.
Thank you, brother. Yeah.
What you're feeling about this guy too, I'm feeling the same thing.
Good.
Yep.
He's like telling me all these things. I'm like getting these visions in my head as he's telling me, and then it all of a sudden stops, right? And the guy that was helping me pray is looking at me, and he's like, "Are you okay?" I look at him, and I'm like, "I don't know, dude. Are you okay?" So that was one of the first times that it's the only time that I've ever seen an entity like in 3D, right? And for the most part, like, I haven't experienced anything else like that. The majority and bulk of my experiences that are more, I won't say relevant, but are still kind of like stuck with me at the moment, are from high school. And I think it's important to note that I didn't remember anything about my pre-birth memories. I didn't remember anything about this past life for a long time. There was a period as a kid where, from maybe 3 to 5 years old, that I remembered that I wasn't from Earth, that I had entered Earth, and then after some point I had totally forgotten, right? And it was only in high school that I remembered one day. And what led up to that was, I had studied physics, like my guide had told me that I would. I was devouring everything that I could get on theoretical physics, and really, really trying to understand the universe from a scientific perspective. And just so I can clarify, like, I'm terrible at math, so I wasn't doing theoretical calculations in high school, but I definitely understand the concepts very well, right? And so after a certain point, I hit a wall with what physics at the moment could tell us, right? And I realized that everything that it's describing would leave open the potential for what religion talks about and what things are talked about, the experiences that people have in meditation and in plant medicine ceremonies, for me, it clicked, and I was like, this is exactly what physics is talking about. And if I want to understand anything more, then I'm going to have to meditate, right? And so I did. And from, I want to say, my sophomore year to my senior year of high school, I would meditate every single day at lunch for the most part. And I don't remember when things really started to ramp up, but I remember there would be one classroom that I would go into and immediately just drop into this other realm, right? And
here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. It speaks for itself.
It's just
this kind of falls back into the hopping timelines, right? I call it straddling timelines. So I was sitting in class one day, and the teacher called me or told me, hey, like, I need to talk to you in the hallway. And I was like, okay. So she takes me out into the hallway, and the door has, a little window on it. And so I'm talking to her, and I turn my head, and I realize there's another version of her sitting at the desk. And so I'm looking back and forth at her, and I'm like, what is happening right now, And the one that I'm talking to, looks at me, and she goes, I'm giving you my angel. And she puts her hands over my ears and goes, can you hear me? And I said, no. She goes, she mouths, how about now? And obviously I couldn't. And she goes, okay, good. And so I went back and sat down in class completely bewildered, for lack of a better word. And, obviously questioning, like, what was that? So the way that I describe something like that is like, we're able to split our consciousness in more ways than one, right? We know from physics that time isn't linear, which means consciousness isn't linear either, right? So what was happening there is I had timelines that were overlapping, right? And so I was able to be walking in between the two. And I kept having this phrase repeat in my head, 1 foot in this world and 1 foot in the other. And I was like, why is this there? And, realizing now in retrospect, like, I was literally, splitting different aspects of myself into these other timelines. And Seth Speaks talks about this, and I sent you the link for this, but in Seth Speaks, he talks about, how we can allocate parts of our consciousness to different realities, so to speak, how dreams are actually equally as valid as this reality, how we can alter this timeline through our dreams. And so there's a lot of ways that these understandings, and I know it's like more esoteric than I think most people are willing to accept at the moment. And I don't have all the answers, but I do know from my experience that like this stuff is real, and it's also one of those things where, at the time, like, well, I still don't, but I didn't have a container. I'm a high school kid, and I'm like opening this Pandora's box of experiences, and had no idea what I was getting into. So eventually what happened is I thought I was completely losing my mind. I thought it was crazy. And
what's about to be revealed has happened to other people, but just given kind of what we've heard about the experience so far, and some of the questions that have arisen or rose, it'll make you wonder a little bit. No offense, of course, to Dominic.
I ended up in a psych ward for about a week, and there's a lot more that I can say about that. And I want to share that because I feel like that experience is probably a lot more common than people understand and realize. It's interesting because a lot of indigenous cultures would accept people that have my experiences as, you know, the medicine men or, you know, what have you. A lot of indigenous cultures would.
Yeah, and that's a line straight out of Jerry Marzinski and his material. Interviewed him a couple times. People who are receptive to piercing the veil and having experiences were looked upon as something like Dominic says, medicine man, or the healers, or you know, kind of up there in the tribal communities. And yeah, today it's vilified, and there's a whole industry behind it that is designed to make money and exploit people and not help them, and instead vilify them, throw them to the streets, bill up their insurance until insurance can't pay anymore, and then kick them out on the streets. Maybe they get arrested, or maybe, you know, a few months down the road, their insurance will pay again, and they're able to get admitted, and they're thrown medication. You know, they run out of medication because they can't afford it. And of course, there's the toxicity issue as well, which can't really talk about, and then rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. It's a vicious cycle. So anyways, we are at an hour and 12 minutes right now. So probably just best to take a quick little break, and probably about 5 minutes, and we'll see you shortly. Harold, you available for another segment?
Yes, I am.
All right. We'll be right back, my friends. Thank you. Just gonna mute Harold. All right, my friends. Sorry about that. Thank you for your patience. And hey, guys, it's FC. Got another reality breakdown for you. All right, so we are going to head into segment 2 here. We've only got about 2 minutes on this one, and then there's another segment right after. And Harold, welcome back.
Thank you.
And let's roll.
So it's interesting to have these experiences, not have anybody understand them, not have any kind of support for them, and really, really hard.
Well, thank you so much for sharing about those experiences. I can imagine that would probably be very difficult, but you're in good company here and with the other guests that I interview on my channel, because it's really common for people who've had a near-death experience, and I'm beginning to think people that have pre-birth memories to be more open and have these types of experiences.
Yeah.
And I haven't experienced everything that you have by a long shot. I mean, I haven't experienced 2 different timelines or anything like that, but I can relate to some of what you're saying because I also communicated with trees when I was young, and I was raised in really strict Christianity. So I was led to believe you're communicating with demons, and I shut it down as a teenager out of fear, and I wish I wouldn't have. But
Yeah.
I feel like I'm starting to get some of that back just as a process of learning how to do it. But anyway,
You could definitely communicate with trees. I've experienced it myself. And some people are like, oh, it's fucking crazy, FC. No, it's very real.
There's something to it for sure.
There is no
take some
doubt
shrooms.
about it.
Go look at some trees.
Yeah, well, you don't even need shrooms. I mean,
Yeah, it's true.
I'm sure that would help.
Yeah.
It's not gonna hurt. It
Yep.
could activate it a little bit more, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's something to just even grass and plants and flowers and all that. I mean, there's a deeper connection between all of us with them.
Oh yeah, big time. Animals too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's enough of me talking about myself. How much time do you have?
All right, so that is the end of the first segment. Now we're gonna hop into the second one. Let me just get this up here. Just be one moment. So if Jimmy's out there, this is segment 2, my friend, for later.
Yeah, that guy's story was kind of making me anxious. He definitely reminds me of myself. It's like I wrote this down on the break because I wanted to remember, but it feels like
go for it. Yeah.
when I hear other pre-birthers and NDEs talk about their experience, it's like we kind of like have like a weird God complex thing. It's like, I feel like, because when you're in that spirit realm, you get all this information and all this amazing energy being thrusted at you, and then you come here and you just feel like, I don't know, you just like bring that place with you a little bit,
Sure, and it makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, that was it. It just like, it's just weird hearing people talk about it now. And if they're not aware of what's going on, it's just, I was like, man, I just hear myself in that. Like when I go watch my video again, I'm just like, oh man. It's real recent too.
Yeah, well, I think because the experience, like those types of experiences, are so vastly different than what we were taught and what the rest of society believes, which is almost nothing, then it kind of by proxy, feels sensational and ridiculous and maybe even, a little bit of the God complex inside of it too. I mean,
Yeah.
A bunch of these NDEers have the God complex. Just
Oh, yeah.
know it. They know it all. I mean,
Yep.
it's just.
I still even carry that with me now. Even now, I feel that. It's just because you experience this crazy, powerful energy and all this all this crazy amounts of knowledge, and then you quote unquote knowledge, and then you come here, and then it's just like you want to share it. You want to just I don't know. It's weird.
Makes sense, man. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to head into the second segment.
Your pre-birth memory after you had left your previous life, and then you thought that you were on your way to hell. And you said it was when you surrendered and accepted that experience.
Did you think you were on your way to hell, Harold?
No.
That you moved into a place of peace. Do you think that surrender is significant in some way?
Yeah, I think, even in this life, when we're dealing with any kind of emotion, to accept what you are experiencing in the moment is really what allows you to move through life, right? And I think, specifically in that place, from what I can piece together, so in Seth Speaks, he talks about how when we die, our guides receive us on the other side. And sometimes our guides have to basically act out what we believe we are going to experience on the other side. So these hecklers that I experienced could very well have been my guides acting it out, and pretending to be these demons and heckling me.
Oh, how convenient, huh?
Wow.
Yeah. Why don't you add to a little bit of that, Harold?
So angels just pretend to be demons for what now? What's the reason?
Yeah, just for fun.
What?
Just for fun. Just for
funsies?
shits and giggles, right? Yeah, I mean, and that's what I think. Again, we're dealing with two sides, of the same coin.
When he brought that up the first time, when he was getting sucked into the void, that's why I was kind of, I was curious, did he go into the light and then experience that? So you can have a hell-like experience after you go into the light, or is it before? Because he didn't really clarify that.
That it's tough to say specifically. I think based on what I see, the hell-like experiences are before the light. Because even in these hell-like experiences, or the negative, whatever you want to call them, there always seems to be the light in the distance. So they may be getting their ass kicked all around them by these entities or demons, whatever you want to call them. And there's always something, like a white light, something that gives them
that will comfort
reassurance,
you,
comfort. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. And once you submit, or when they're done with you, then you can go to the light. Things will start to open up a little bit more. I interviewed a guy who had an NDE, and he had an altar. It was a freaking altar, but there was a white light in the altar, and he was getting his ass kicked left and right. But the altar was he said every time he put his energy and intention towards that altar with the white light inside of it, it would relieve him. It would give him, it would help him get through the ass kicking.
And that's the difference with this guy, though, because he's saying his guides are doing that. Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. Well, and it wouldn't surprise me, because it does seem like as soon as people submit and give themselves over, even if they're getting their ass kicked, then the situation can change, at the snap of a finger. Everything just can change immediately. So that's pretty much what happens to him.
Mm-hmm.
because
Allegedly.
when we cross over, any ego around that experience has to be played out. Otherwise, it would be too jarring, right? It would be really, really jarring to die and then all of a sudden, you're in heaven or whatever your label you want to slap on it. I call it. I just call it the other realm. It's just the transition, right? And so it's the same thing with birth. It obviously, whatever I call it technology, whatever technology is being used for this reality to even exist, we have to go through the birthing process, because to just go from a pure being of energy and light into a human incarnate form would be too jarring.
Okay. And before he kind of continues, I think it's really important the words that he used. He used the term technology. And that's what we're in. We're in some sort of technological construct, some AI type construct that runs the greater reality. And then there's some entities in the background pulling all the levers, like Wizard of Oz. And see, what he says is, oh, it'll be a little too much to handle, or this and that. Well, tell that to the NDEers who get shoved in their body, and they say it is horrible, absolutely horrible. It's just awful. And it's kind of like a little simplified over here, and he makes it sound like oh, like there's like this, this loving, nurturing, caring process to kind of soften the blow, when that's just not the case. From everything I see personally,
a human incarnate form would be too jarring, right? It would be too jarring of an experience. And I think this is why they asked Chris, like, did your body take to your energy? Because I think for some, souls, a physical incarnation could be too jarring. And
every soul,
I think there has to be that transition process. So the surrender piece is what allows us to, it's like an energetic way of saying, okay, like now I'm in a space to receive the truth, right? I don't know if I explained that very well, but
No, that makes a lot of sense. So they have to wait for our surrender and our willingness before we can move on. And maybe that could explain why some souls seem to be trapped here or still connected here to this realm, because they're still working out some type of karma or ego, like you said.
But we're all here, right? I mean, let's just really be honest with each other. We're all here. So when I heard her say this the first couple, I listened to this is the third time, second time, sorry. When I heard her say that, it just makes me think again, like, we're all here. We're experiencing it. So we all fell for this. We fell for the trick, the karmic deception of guilt and shame by whatever we did in the previous lifetime, because we believed exterior beings had a right to, cast down judgment and this and that everything is for a purpose in your spiritual growth and evolution, and it's all love. And then you kind of come out the other end and you say, yeah, but the memory wipe exists. So, there's a disconnection there. There's a huge disconnection there. And, honestly, ask yourself, why am I here? And the answer is because I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but the answer is we all fell for this for who knows how many lifetimes. And the cycle just keeps going. And they have the ace in the hole, and the ace in the hole is the memory wipe. If they didn't have that, this place would be a barren wasteland. Okay? Let's just call it what it is. No one's going to come here if they have the full picture of what actually goes on here. That's just the truth of it. There might be a few crazies out there that'll do it. But I mean, even if you came down for one experience and yeah, it was hell and it sucked, I mean, whatever. Okay. And then you got out of here and at least you weren't subjected to having the memory wipe. Then, all right, okay, I experienced crazy land on Earth, but the whole cycle of all this, the repetitive cycles over and over and over again, memory wipe, cycle, memory wipe, cycle. No. That's how they get away with this whole thing. And so many out there love to just throw that away as if it's nothing. And explain it away again, for the evolution and this. I mean, just, I don't want to rant too much, but you get the point. Harold, you want to say anything on this one?
Oh man, so much to say.
Go ahead,
so much.
please.
It's just like, well, first of all, I see that seeking truth there is like these meat suits are gross. I was kind of thinking something different right now. I was like,
okay,
these bodies are disgusting. Like if we're made in God's image, like why do we have to like consume flesh to survive and like poop? Like why do we,
Yeah, why you gotta shit and piss?
Yeah. That's just reading his comment right now. But yeah.
It's crazy. Just everything's just excused.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to ask you why your guides seemed like they were heckling you, but you answered that already. So that's very interesting that they would need to act out whatever role they need to play for us. Okay, so you said when you were on the other side in the form of this orb of light or energy or whatever you were, that you were very excited and bouncing off the walls to come here. And I get asked a lot, like probably the question I get asked the most is, why would anybody want to come here? Why would anybody want to come here and suffer? So from your perspective, from the other side, what was exciting to you about this life?
The chance to be incarnated in a human body, from what I can understand, is very valuable, right? It's going to offer you the experience. It's like an accelerated experience.
Wait till you hear what he has to say here. Okay. Well, we're going to rewind just a little bit. All right. Take a breather, everybody. Breathe in. All right. You can lose your mind in about 10 seconds.
Very valuable, right? It's going to offer you the experience. It's like an accelerated experience of what you could get in other realms and other experiences. The human experience is like the amount of things that you can learn here in a lifetime is way, 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 way more than what you can in other places, is what I can gather. And it's also the perfect tool, I'll call it, for learning how to create. Like the only thing that we're really doing here is learning how to consciously create our reality, right?
Okay. So the whole thing is propped up. It's made to feel, again, it's made to please the ego and feel like, this is some special thing and that you could only learn this here. Meanwhile, what we see clearly is if you are able to leave your body, you can do insane things. You can do all sorts of crazy things. I mean, what's going on here as our human form it's barely even a drop in the bucket. It's basically a desert wasteland compared to when you're able to leave your body and have those capabilities, those inherent abilities that we came with.
Yep, these bodies are basically a handicap.
Yes.
It's like it restricts us in so many ways. They're just, yeah.
It's absurd, man. And it just, and it's all sugar coated like it's this amazing, we should be thankful. And we're never, Harold, there's no way we can possibly, grow without this experience. I mean, we just have to go through this, and there's just so many things that we can learn and do that are just not available in our full access creator being body, so to say, like our true essence. It's just nuts. Totally nuts.
Basically learn to never create a place that's even remotely looks like this place.
Yes, exactly. Lesson learned, right?
I learned how to suffer. Yeah. It's great.
Oh yeah.
Good times.
So cool.
Yeah.
And because it's a 3D reality, we have to move through it linearly, which means we get to practice slow. If we were in higher dimensions or higher realities where things are more dreamlike, for those of you that can remember your dreams, if you notice when your emotions change in your dreams, it's an instantaneous feedback loop. So this is
it's an instantaneous feedback loop. But and I'm outside of my body and exploring, or if I have an out of body experience, or I decide to astral project and have that experience. Yeah. I mean, it's pathetic compared to this amazing human body that we have access to, right? I mean, whew, boy, the things we can do with this human form is just off the charts. Lessons to be learned everywhere, superpower abilities. I mean, boy, yeah, the human body is a governor for our true essence. It and hijacks us in every way imaginable, down to like the everything. Forget it. I'm good. Let's move on.
If you notice when your emotions change in your dreams, it's an instantaneous feedback loop. So this is a good practice space, because if I'm afraid of something, I have time to switch that emotion before it actually manifests physically in some way. As far as why anybody would choose to incarnate and suffer, I do not believe that suffering is a necessity, or
it isn't a necessity.
Wow, he said it himself.
Yeah, see? Yeah.
It isn't, but it happens.
But it happens to everyone. Everyone. There are no exceptions. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how healthy you are. I don't care how jacked you are, how well fit you are. It doesn't matter. You will experience suffering while you're here. Period. The end. There's no debating this. It's a fact. Right.
Not only do we experience, not only do we experience it, we have to witness other people suffering too.
Yeah.
And if you have like an ounce of empathy inside you, that affects you too.
Yeah.
So it's just suffering on top of suffering.
Yeah, it hurts
no rest.
to see. Yeah, it hurts to see other people suffering.
Oh yeah.
Especially when they're those you care about.
Yep.
But you don't have to if you don't want to, right? Yeah.
Yeah. A staple of life. That's not the right word. It's not inherent in life, right? I don't believe that life is inherently suffering. So the reason we experience suffering is because we are in a state of consciousness that creates suffering, right? And so we choose
Not consciousness, body.
to
We're in a
incarnate
body.
into
Exactly.
situations and circumstances. We choose parents to be born to based on what will allow us to have mirrored back to us the things that will progress us spiritually to not necessarily end our suffering, but teach us how to consciously create our experience so that we don't have to suffer. I don't think suffering is a necessity for life. I actually think life is designed for everything to thrive.
No, life is designed for suffering. I'm
Yep.
sorry. That's
It is.
just the cold, hard truth of it. If you're in a human body, if you're in an animal body, it is designed to suffer. It may not be the first few years of your life. You may not be, it doesn't matter. You go running around as a child, you scrape your knee, dislocate your wrist, your shoulder, your knee. You're playing sports or doing whatever you're doing. Is there not going to be suffering involved? You say a child loses their mother or their father at a very young age or whenever. Is that not suffering? It goes back to your point about empathy, Harold. You know, I mean, for others, that's a form of suffering. I mean, it's all around us. You lose a pet, that's suffering. They suffered, and you suffer as a result of feeling their suffering. You know, I mean, and your love
Yep.
for them. On and on and on and on.
Yep.
And live in a way that's harmonious and balanced and without conflict, right? But I don't think we're there yet. Is the part of that? Like, we are here to create the circumstances that allow that paradigm to exist, right? This is kind of what religion talks about a little bit. About God's kingdom coming or being made on earth, right? So the kingdom isn't here. It's not out here. It's in consciousness. It's how we shape our consciousness. You'll see mystics and gurus talk about this, throughout history. They're all saying the same thing. It's all about how we shape ourselves.
Okay, and I got to say this because we just had an example. Was it last night? Yeah, I think it was last night. And there's been many before it where people have a near-death experience and they are told that they have to go back for whatever reason, a mission, their loved ones, blah, blah, blah. You pick it, whatever the case may be. There are plenty examples of people who come back and they always say, I didn't want to come back. I didn't want to go back. And then they, of course, go through a very rough patch, usually for about a period of 2 years, trying to figure out what happened to them, why they're back. And there's guilt, there's shame. And you know what that leads to? That leads back to the NDE that they had because they feel that they got kicked out of God's kingdom. So this is very much a real thing. Sorry, Harold, go ahead.
No, I was just adding. I just said brutal. That's what you said. Yeah, it's brutal.
I mean, just imagine like you're that totally wide open being when you're having that NDE, and then you get rejected and thrusted and thrown back into the meat suit, and you're like, wake up, and you're like, whoa, holy shit, this is way different than where I just came from. And on top of that, you feel like you got kicked out of the kingdom of God by God itself or Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad or whoever. Get the hell out of here. It just amazes me.
And how we shape ourselves is directly reflected in our physical reality.
Yeah, you definitely explained that very well. It makes so much sense. I think a lot of times we get this idea that we come here to life to experience suffering because that's going to make us stronger. And yes, but what I hear you saying is we come here to experience the circumstances, or I don't know
The suffering.
what the right word would be, but we come here to experience, put ourselves in situations or circumstances so that we can learn how not to suffer.
Yeah, if I can, let me rephrase it. We put ourselves in circumstances that will remind us who we are, right? And who we are if we're living authentically.
Well, I've been doing my best since I was a kid, and I've been suffering ever since. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, where do we fall short, Harold?
Yeah, seriously.
Same here, dude. It's just amazing how easy it is for, to just revert back to, like the safe. It's like a safe space. That's what we're dealing with. The safe spaces at these schools where, your words hurt my feelings, and I need protection and I need groups behind me and all this other stuff. I understand, people have problems and shit happens and some things get escalated way beyond way beyond the point where they should. But, the whole society that's kind of being built up around it is really about suppressing our speech and our that's a whole nother topic, and we're not even going to go there, but
yep.
Anything else you want to add, Harold?
Nope.
All right.
Who we are, right? And who we are if we're living authentically. We are love, we are peace, we are joy, we are already all those things. Everything else is just stuff that we've accumulated. And, if we are able to drop those things, what's left is already perfect.
I love that. So do you remember any of the details of what you came here to do specifically in your mission?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I just have to say really quickly, I'm going to rewind this one part and I'm going to give you something that's personal to me.
I love that. So do you
We're able to drop those things. What's left is already perfect.
Okay, if you're able to drop those things, which he's talking about suffering, mind you. Okay, I've had chronic Lyme disease for well over a decade. It sucks. I can't just drop it. Sometimes I can mentally zone it out. Some days are better than others. Some days are worse than others. But on my really bad days, it's occupying me. No matter what the hell I do, no matter how good I eat, or, I'm not the most healthy guy by any means. But in the same breath, when you have some sort of biological weapon attack you in the form of a tick, and there really isn't any solution to it. I mean, granted, I've done better, but the point is I am just a small example of this. There are people suffering way worse than that, and it's not as simple as just saying, "Oh, when you just strip it away, everything will be okay. It's okay. It's not going to come back tomorrow or next week. La la la." Now, this is just new age, love and light. Zone anything out that isn't love and light, and that's it. I am going. I mean, you know what?
That's the easy road.
Yeah. I mean, it's just filled with cognitive dissonance, right? I mean, it's amazing. It really is. It's like
it's like a fear response.
Yeah.
They just don't. Nobody wants to accept that all this shit is pointless.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just here for one thing. And it's probably the hardest thing for anybody to grasp, especially people that have the NDEs and the pre-births, because it's just you feel that love bomb, and you feel that knowledge and everything, and it's so, again, words can't describe how good it feels, and you just want to just hang on to that,
Yeah.
You want to hang on to that good feeling.
Yeah, and they, you know what? They probably just give it to us temporarily, and then they just dispose of us back down the conveyor belt.
Yeah.
Off into the next lifetime, to hand us to the wolves. Like, they need that love bomb to kind of cloak the
Hooks you.
the hopes to suck us in, and cloak the life review, and cloak the memory wipe, and then they shove you out. They maybe you get a little vacation to relax and recharge a little bit, and then they send you back off down here. What the hell?
Yep.
Love that. So do you remember any of the details of what you came here to do specifically in your mission?
Great question.
Yeah. It's something I've actually struggled with a bit, because it's so vague, and it's like, how do I apply this? But like, I came here to be happy. Like, I know this sounds like super
what
silly, but I mean,
yeah, it does.
To be happy here is to be able to relate to yourself in a way that all of your relations flourish. So it's not just the relationship with yourself, but when the relationship with yourself is, authentic, life happens for you. It doesn't happen to you. And I think, if I had to answer, like what the quintessential meaning of life is, it's relationship.
Okay, but the thing is sometimes life does happen to you. It's easy to say that, but sometimes life does happen to you. It doesn't necessarily. It could be something stupid and small, and not important, or it could be something massive and huge that, again, you had no input or control of, and it was thrusted onto your life. So again, it depends on the individual. So, you just have to, there's so much that you can break down in this entire conversation. We'd be talking here for probably 5 hours if we really wanted to dissect everything. But
yeah,
it's crazy.
Because being in a 3D reality, everything is in relation to something else that can't exist if it's not in relationship to something else. So everything that we are doing here is about relationship and creating a particular relationship with ourselves and with each other. Yeah. And we get to determine what that is. And this is the funny part, I think, is like, all of this exists because of love. Like, we wouldn't have even the quote unquote bad things that happen in life could not exist without love. We are allowed to experience bad things because we are loved, and because everything is love.
I heard you mention contracts that you had made with other souls.
I'm sorry. Do you want to say something, Harold?
I just found that upsetting. It's just, you just, again, suffer because of love. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
It's never. I've always, my whole entire life, have had basically looked at this place as a shithole, and just, and it's weird because I do relate to him too, because he's just like trying to, like, make best of the situation and try to spread positivity, which is, the best thing to do in a crappy situation.
For sure. But
it's just a whole lot of making excuses to suffer. It's like, there's no reason.
Yeah, it's too one-sided. You can't go through all that and say all that and not balance it out. Yeah. And then, like, I like to say, okay, yeah, we have, this really negative situation, but there are a lot of positives. Value these positives, like, you know, your family, your pets, walks in nature, you know, getting out camping, going on vacation, going out to eat, taking a drive or something, and going to a concert, whatever. Pick whatever it is, you know, balance it out. I mean, you know yourself better than anyone else. We all know ourselves better than anyone else, and we know what makes us happy. And, you know, wallowing in all this stuff does not help. Like, but at the same time, you know, sitting up here and saying, you know, hey, you know, everything's love and light all the time, 24/7, and can be explained away. No, like, that's just refusing to be honest with yourself. And that links to the whole New Age thing over and over again. So.
Yep. It's like teaching your kid tough love. You know, you gotta show them. You have to show them the truth. Like, the truth sucks sometimes, but if you try to what am I trying to say here? Like, if, you know, you're raising a child and you're only showing them the good and or sheltering them, they you know, they're not really going to be prepared for
the real world.
Truth, for the world.
Yeah.
So just everything's all love and light. It's just, no, it's definitely not. Are your eyes closed? Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know, just Jesus.
No, exactly. I think that's a great point. Like, you can't shelter a child from the horrors of the world. I mean, look, children deserve to enjoy life and be children and just do their thing and be happy as much as possible. But at the same time, if you do shelter them from the horrors of this reality and about just the overall human experience and existence and the possible threats, then what does that do? That's not going to help them when they get thrusted into the real world, you know, after they graduate high school and head on to college or go out into the job market and get their own place and you know, run into some shady people or some jerks or some assholes who, you know, at work who are trying to beat them out for a promotion or set them up for something pin them against the boss or even get robbed. I mean, all sorts of different scenarios can present themselves. And, you know, that's where, like, the line needs to be drawn. Like, you know, you got to give them what they deserve, which is to allow them to be a child. But at the same time, you still need to make sure that they're prepared for when they do come into the world.
Yep.
In your video on your channel, when I watched it, do you believe that we come here with others who we might maybe refer to as our soul families? And then we come. What are your thoughts on that?
So I don't know, because I don't remember making a contract with anyone specifically, but I remember talking to friends of mine that I would eventually meet here in life, right? And I share this because it shows just how much, like, free will is at play, right? But some of those friends, you know, I don't talk to anymore. And just because you have made a contract with someone doesn't mean it's like this permanent thing, right? But I definitely think, you know, we agree to come here and play out scenarios for each other because they are the building blocks of what, you know, allows us to awaken parts of our consciousness and bring our awareness to parts of ourselves that we couldn't see otherwise, which again goes back to relationship. If we don't have relationship, then we don't have a way of seeing ourselves.
When you were planning your life, I can't remember if we talked about this just now, but I know I heard you talk about it in your video on your channel, that you saw, like, a lot of details of what you were coming here to experience. And you sort of just touched on this now, but how much of it is pre-planned and how much of it is up to our free will once we get here?
There, from my experience, and I can't say for certain that it's the same for everyone, but from my experience, there are particular events that I have to experience because they will allow me and kind of nudge and lead me to what I came here to do, right? And I know I said I came here to be happy, right? It's a little more nuanced than that. Again, from my experience, everything that I have experienced, regardless of how far I deviate from the quote unquote plan, right? That deviation is countered by my sense of authenticity, right? So when I start to live inauthentically, like it manifests in my body, it manifests in my spiritual sense of life, right? When I deviate from authenticity, I'm very unhappy and miserable. When I live in alignment with that, when I live, authentically in life, and I show up authentically in life, that to me is, the path, so to speak. And it's inevitable that I will, basically hit those checkpoints through life of where, I'll have literal like deja vu of like, oh, like I remember seeing this. And it's like, it's not, oh, wait, I like feel like I've been here before. It's like, oh no, this was supposed to happen. Like I remember like picking this out and like now I've made it, right? Which is nice to have. Free will, and if you want to call it destiny or pre-planning or whatever you want to call it, I think it's equal. And I think it's something that has to be recognized and honored by all people. And this is something that like I really have wanted to share with people for a while. But if we operate under the assumption that what I've experienced and what you've experienced and what other people like have experienced, there is absolutely zero reason for anyone's life to be put down, or a hierarchical system.
Really, that's an interesting one, because we're in a hierarchical system. The astral is a hierarchical system. Like when I heard this the first time, I'm like, okay, but that's what we're in. That doesn't mean we have to bow down to it and obey it. But the point is it's set up in a way for us to believe it, to give it legitimacy when it's the furthest thing from it. And this happens over and over and over again. So again, it's kind of like just throwing down additional veils and saying, oh, let me just throw my hands up in the air and hope that, I'm not impacted by it. But every single person on earth is impacted by it, with maybe the exception of a few tribes out there who are in the middle of the woods in the Amazon or something, and they haven't been found yet. I mean, and thrown into the capitalistic society or completely dehumanized and decultured and had their language stolen from them and had their hair cut and children stolen away so that they will comply. So many different things have happened here, and the hierarchical system is very real. But until you reach a state of awareness that is rooted in the understanding that that entity, that hierarchical system, doesn't have power over you, you're most likely going to fall right into it, because we all have, and we all are still involved with it. We all need money to survive. We all got to pay our bills. We all got to go to work. We all got to do what we got to do, right? And now what are they doing? They're jacking us with this inflation. Around the world, everyone's paying the highest prices probably ever and being underpaid at the same time. Well, who controls that? A hierarchical system, because just because you work for a good boss and they're nice to you and they're paying you okay, but you're still struggling month to month, doesn't mean that the ladder doesn't keep going up and up and up and up, and that who's at the top? The people who print the money, the governments that control the people, the markets, all this stuff, and it just trickles down. But it's all connected to the same parasitic hierarchical system. It can't be denied. That's what we're dealing with. So yeah, easy to say that. Say that to the homeless guy on the street who, was doing fine 3-4 years ago, and then maybe 2 years ago, his business was hanging by a thread, and then it just got decimated. Or he got a divorce, or she or he got a divorce and lost most of their money, or a child got sick, or they got sick and they didn't have insurance and had to pay for it to try and get themselves healthy again. Just a few examples right there. So the hierarchical system is happening. It's not an illusion. It's what's happening. It can't be denied. All right, I'm done ranting.
To be in place, because we're literally all equal. We all chose our life circumstances, and regardless of
the food crisis is another one.
Whether you're a billionaire or someone who is struggling with drug addiction and homeless on the street, like, everyone's life has to be honored, because we are all,
But everyone's life is not honored. That's the point.
Are all, living out the circumstances that are leading us to a greater state of awareness and being. And it's not just for us as individuals, like it literally is for the collective.
This is kind of a side question, but are you familiar with Dolores Cannon or Michael Newton? Okay, because I was going to say what you're describing is exactly what's in their books.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually, if you were familiar with Dolores Cannon, I wanted to ask your opinion on something that I heard her say, because a lot of times you'll hear from near-death experiencers that they signed a contract to come and live this specific life. But I heard Dolores Cannon say that the souls who are part of Earth, to where they keep going back and back over and over and over and growing along with Earth, that they actually signed a contract to be part of this whole process and to live who knows how many lifetimes. Do you agree?
A contract.
Agree with that?
So one of the things that my guide told me, he was explaining what the Earth experience is. And I remember trying to wrap my head around, okay, obviously this is not my first time, how many times have I done this? And I asked him, and he didn't give me a number, but he just said, trust me, it's a lot.
Oh yeah. It's all love and light, right? It's not about suffering. No. Been here a lot. You're not even going to get an honest number from them. I mean, isn't that a clue in and of itself, Dominic? Like, isn't that a problem, my friend?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Because what if they said like 5 million.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, how many times do I have to do this until I learn? 5 million?
Fucking
How many
crazy.
times do I have to get stabbed, like he said, and get killed?
Yeah. Yeah, and like she brings up Michael Newton's book, and I think we talked about this last stream or a couple streams back, and I've brought it up previously, where there was a case in there where a person was working. I'm going to look up the book because I keep messing this up, and I want to know for certain as a reference for the future, but I think the person said that they were working 5,000 lifetimes, Harold, just on empathy alone.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Just on empathy. Oh, when do you pass the test, Harold? Well,
I don't
just
know.
for empathy.
Yeah.
It's either 5,000 lifetimes or 5,000 years. Either way, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Either way, it's
ridiculous.
wretched. I mean, let's just say what, 10, 20, like what, 50 lifetimes, and that's being generous. Probably more like 60. Not everyone's living to 100. We're kind of being. It's still, no matter what, 50, 60, 100 lifetimes. That's not cool. Just to work on empathy.
It sounds like a crazy number, like even like the 5,000 or let's just say 20,000. But again, when you're in that spirit realm, there's no time. So
yep.
20,000 lifetimes could seem like 5 seconds.
Yep.
So
that's the difference. Yep.
Yeah.
Difference.
Trying to put it into perspective.
No, sure. Absolutely.
I can't say for certain, but I can say that I know the earth to be, a conscious being, right? And it's made up of multitudes of different types of consciousness, right? And so the human being, the human form is a literal extension of the earth, right? Like it didn't come from outer space that we know of, maybe it did, but from what we can tell, it is a literal offshoot of earth. And it makes sense to me that eventually, if you look at it from an evolutionary standpoint, that if the earth is conscious, that it would want an ability to propagate, right? So it's interesting that as human beings, we're actually able to leave the planet, but we are still an extension of this bigger consciousness that is earth, that is our mother, right? So in that sense, I don't know, maybe we did sign a contract and say, yeah, I will be here to fulfill this, role of playing out the evolutionary process of the earth and the creation of the earth. And it's hard to say. I don't know if I necessarily believe in, the contracts either, because then how is, I'm not really sure how it really fit with free will as much, but I just don't know.
Yeah, maybe one of those things that we just don't have the full answer to from this perspective.
And if you don't have the full answer, isn't that a problem? If you don't have the full picture, the full answer about what you're dealing with, and just blindly giving trust, again, like I like to compare it to, you're walking down the street and some guy, let's just say, they're walking down the street. Maybe they've got torn clothes, they're dirty, and maybe you got like some bug eyes and they're holding a knife or something, and they're walking towards you. Whether they're walking or running in your direction, what are you going to do? You're not necessarily going to trust them. You're going to kind of step aside and avoid that situation because you don't want to be in the line of fire of something you know nothing about. Now, what's to say that the beings that are out there aren't cloaking themselves as this love and light character, and that's exactly what they're doing. Let's not fool ourselves. That's exactly what we're dealing with. They play both ends of the spectrum in an effort to manipulate and win us over. It's just endless, and we just need to use precautions, just like we would here. The same precautions that you put forward for you and your family and your pets and everybody else that you care about and love are the same things that you should do for yourself at the time of death. What's wrong with that? I mean, so many people, Harold, let's talk about this, man. Think about how many people believe in demons. They believe in them. They know they're real, but yet it can't possibly be the case when they're crossing over, right? Or when they have these experiences. It's like it all just has to be thrown away. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
I agree. And it's interesting you said that. I don't want to go off on a long tangent, but
we only got a few more minutes on the video, so feel free.
Just speaking about that, again, even in the Bible, it talks about these beings, demons. They're beings of light. So, yeah. So we have this idea that they're, got horns and a tail, mm-hmm. but, and throughout history, they're described as being the most beautiful creature you'll ever see. So it's just that, that deception is, something that's right in front of our faces, but people seem to forget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Bible has a lot of truths in it. It does. It's
yeah,
but it's still a control mechanism, just like any other religion. But still, I mean, when you take it and apply it to everything, like beings of light, I mean, what's Lucifer, the light bearer, and all this other stuff. I mean, it's all in our face. I mean, I think the whole Jesus thing is kind of cloaked and also about us finding ourselves, looking within the we can call it the Christ within or whatever, however you want to term it. But there's a lot of layered truths, but a lot of layered deceptions to kind of throw us off in the same breath. And that, basically the system hopes that, you're not necessarily going to dig too deep on this type of thing. And, there's entire organizations dedicated to dissecting and explaining away certain quotes within the Bible and all that mm-hmm. stuff too. So, I mean, a bunch of apologists out there. Yep. And then of course just the differences in the versions of the Bible is another one. You have
there's so many.
Yeah, I mean, the psychopathic God,
mm-hmm.
all of a sudden gets cleaned up. I mean,
the New Testament. Yeah.
I mean, what? I mean, all of us. I mean, so basically, revised history of a book is supposed to be believed over the source book. Yeah. Okay.
When in one side of the Bible he was killing babies and raining frogs, and then the next one.
And what psychopath sends his only son down to suffer and be, thrown up on a cross?
Yeah, it's just always never sat with me. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, I'll just ask you a couple more questions.
Just a couple more.
How do you think that we can get the most out of this experience while we're in it?
That's a big question. I would say prioritize love and being present with life, because everything that you do matters. And I think it's scary for a lot of people to think that, oh my goodness, every single thing that I do has an impact, and it does. But you also have to understand that, we're eternal. We get to come back and do this as many times as it takes. So there's no,
as it takes,
right or wrong with what you do here. It's just more of what you choose to prioritize. And if what you choose to prioritize is how you create yourself to show up in the world, I think
You know what's really interesting, Mark, is that he's
essentially
like
that's
he's saying it's like a privilege
Yeah.
to come here.
Yeah.
That's pretty strange to me because I've never felt that way at all.
It's a privilege, bro.
Yeah, no.
Feel privileged in your suffering.
Yeah. I never want to do this again.
No. Well said, Harold.
Yeah.
I think essentially that's really all we're here to do, is to enjoy life, to enjoy this experience, to enjoy the fact that we can experience love, that we can experience heartbreak, that we can experience, tragedy as much as triumph. But it's important to experience those things with the understanding that it's not for us, solely for us. It's for everyone. Like, my triumph is someone else's triumph. My grief is somebody else's grief. When we exist in the paradigm that we live in currently, it's so easy to forget how connected you are to everyone and everything, and bringing that mentality back to this paradigm, the mentality of what I do impacts the whole. I think is really, it's imperative if we are going to shift things on this planet. And it's also more of kind of what I'm going to be discussing on my channel is, when I live authentically, when I create my joy, I'm better able to serve other people because my bucket's fulfilled, and if my bucket's full and it's overflowing, and I can get to a space where my joy, my sense of wellness is overflowing, then I have everything to give back.
Do you?
I mean, just really quickly, the whole shifting earth thing. I mean, how can the new age community or anyone sit there and pretend as if things are getting better, as if there's this big shift going on? Because clearly the disadvantages are ridiculously in our face. So when does honesty come into the picture with all this? I just don't see it. It's just, this is a perpetual narrative that's going to be pushed until whatever happens. And maybe it's going to take a massive event involving suffering, and the people who buy into that, for them to truly see it. Or even then, I mean, I am thoroughly convinced that they have kind of cordoned themselves off into this mindset that it doesn't matter what the hell happens and what the heck the truth is about their existence and the whole control structure that goes on here. They will always find a way to explain it away. And that's the sad thing. It doesn't have to be that way, but it is what it is. There's not enough people awake. I'm sorry, Harold. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, brother. I was just saying you're spot on.
Thank you.
Do you have any final words that you'd like to say? Is there anything that we haven't covered
5D.
that you want to talk about?
The pre-birth memories and all of the things that I've experienced are, in my opinion, less important than living a life that is your own, and living a life that's authentic to you, and living a life that is as close to your authentic self as possible. We are literally born into a paradigm that is designed to force us to forget who we are.
Force us to forget who we are. Designed to force us to forget who we are.
Is designed to force us to forget who we are. And I want everybody to know that you are love at the core. Regardless of whatever has happened to you in your life, you absolutely are love. And if you want to embody that reality is available to you at any moment. To live as if you are eternal, to live as if you can do no wrong, doesn't necessarily mean that our challenges and, violence or anything like that is, acceptable. But it does mean that we have the ability to create and choose and make every choice from fear or from love.
All right, so that's going to be the end of the commentary segment. I wanted to give Harold an opportunity to chime in and maybe give us some closing thoughts. I really appreciate you coming on tonight, Harold. Anything you want to add before
Thank you so
we
much for
wrap things
having
up?
me. Thanks for having me. Had a lot of fun. This is definitely really, I don't want to say like therapeutic for me, just, talking about this, keeping me grounded, and, sometimes life gets in the way and we just feel like I just kind of fall asleep again, get sucked into the trap and worried about life and blah, blah, blah. But hearing stories like this, it just keeps me grounded, like, yeah, never coming back. So I appreciate it. But yeah, I don't really have anything to add, really. Just thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Harold. I really appreciate you coming on tonight. I'm glad we were able to work this out so last minute, and It's always a pleasure to speak with you, and I look forward to talking with you soon, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
All
Love
right.
bombs in the chat. Love bombs.
All right, have yourself a good night, man.
Dude, bye-bye.
All right, my friends, that's going to wrap things up for tonight. I really appreciate you spending time with both Harold and I, and it was a pleasure to have him join us tonight and have a little side commentary together. And I just wanted to close out with a few things really quickly. If you'd like to join the Discord server, Jimmy's going to pop that up in the chat right now. You can also find that in the description tab, and we'll be having a voice chat after the stream, probably within about 10 minutes from now. And you're more than welcome to come and join us. For those who are new, and also those who are not getting notifications, or just haven't had a chance to check it out yet, I do have 2 YouTube backup channels, which are there as a precaution, just in case something should ever happen here. And I still am getting messages, and we did take a poll last week that was asking people, hey, how did you find the channel? Did you get it through YouTube or did you get it through word of mouth? And if so, are you getting notifications? And there was about 30% who responded saying that they are not getting notifications. So the best thing I could recommend first with YouTube is to select the bell and make sure it's hit to all notifications. Usually I'm streaming on the weekends, or 2 times a week most of the time, but sometimes I might do a little more. And I also have an Odyssey account and D Live, a Twitch where sometimes I'll play video games on every once in a great while. And I have a Twitter and an Instagram. So those are the other 2 spots to look out for notifications regarding the live streams on Twitch. I'm sorry, on Twitter and Instagram, I'll usually make a notification with the thumbnail and all that stuff, along with the time and the date, about an hour before each stream. And then a Discord server, the same thing. I'll also do that. I also want to give a heads up. Today is June 18th, 2022. So if you're watching this replay later on, the website may be active, but as of right now, the web address is there, but it's not currently active. So it's kind of there for those who are watching tonight, or maybe the replay tomorrow. It's just there for mostly people who come along the content later on in the future. So I'm going to wrap things up there. I really appreciate everyone coming by tonight, and I will see you all in the Discord shortly. Thank you so much. Take care of yourselves out there.